Hello, everyone. Today I'm going to do something new. I'm going to pull up some recent Reddit threads and I'm going to give you my thoughts and feedback on them. Let's check it out. My emergency rice supply has been destroyed by bugs. Upon hitting hard times, I dipped into my emergency supplies of rice only to find it had been eaten and destroyed by bugs. Their poop had fallen into my rice and was rotting. This sucks. Most people who have done long term food storage have had this problem at one time or another. One of the tricks with rice is that you put your rice in a freezer in a deep freeze for a couple of days, and the cold will kill the bugs. They're called weevils. It's really gross. It's happened to me in an apartment in cardboard boxes, so it sucks. The best thing to do is to put your rice or long-term storage into mylar bags and then put it in your freezer and freeze it for a couple of days to kill the bugs inside. So it's a big stinker. That really sucks, but there's ways to get around it. So move your food into better bags and put it in the freezer. What's the point of the gray man? I see all sorts of people trying to make a gray man outfit. Well, so this guy actually has it wrong. If you go through the thread, he doesn't understand what gray man is. Gray man is trying to disappear, meaning don't stick out. Like the people who have 1,000 different bumper stickers on the back of their cars, or wear flashy clothes or bright colors. It's what you want to do is try to make yourself look like everyone else. Where this mostly comes into play is with your EDC bags or your daily carry bags. I'm not poo-pooing on military. I come from a military family, but you see guys wearing tactical backpacks with flags and logos and morale patches all over them. Well, that gets you noticed. That makes people pay attention to you because you stick out, because you're different. So the idea of the gray man is just to look like everybody else. Use a JanSport backpack that you have left over from college for your EDC. Don't buy tactical clothing from military surplus stores. Get a North Face jacket from REI. So you want to just don't you want to look like the masses, and the point of that is that if you don't stick out, then you won't draw attention to yourself that might be negative. If you're someone who wears combat boots and fatigues and has military jackets on everywhere they go, and your car is full of bumper stickers with Glock and other gun brands, that will draw attention to you, and people, hey, this guy, he's one of those kind of guys. I wonder what kind of stuff he's got in his car, what his bug out bag is. Or maybe I'll follow him home and maybe he'll have gear he can help me out with. This actually also gets into cybersecurity and personal security. I do that in my personal life. Think twice about putting bumper stickers on your car. Like if you have kids and you put my child is an overachiever at Smithson Valley High School, and then you cut some off in traffic and they get behind you, well, now they know that your kid goes to Smithson Valley High School. That might not be a good thing. Or, my son is a soccer all-star at Canyon Cougars. Well, now you've just told the whole world that your kid goes to Canyon High School. That might not be a good thing. So think twice about putting things on your person or on your vehicle or on your house that might reveal information about yourself that you might not want the whole world to know about. What does society's breakdown look like? Here's lessons from preppers. This sort of end of the world thread pops up about once a week on Reddit. Someone who spent way too much time on our collapse and is really trying to predict the end of the world instead of preparing for it because typically when you read the threads, it's fatalistic mid 20 something saying the world's going to end and I'm helpless to defend against it, so I give up. You know, I'm a Tuesday, not doomsday prepper, and while I don't disagree that the world is heading into some dangerous places, you know, until I hit that Powerball, there's only so much I can do about it. So fight the fights that you can fight. I'm not going to beat myself up over things that I can't control. Watch my risk matrix video for more information on that. As a prepper, what are our top 5 most expensive purchases? House, motorhome, solar, greenhouse, water container. I don't disagree with that. I mean, it depends upon what you define as a prepping purchase. You know, I rent. I don't own a house yet. And I bring this up because a lot of people think that prepping is expensive. You know, I see people spend hundreds and hundreds or thousands of dollars a month on prepping. You know, Tuesday, not doomsday. Tuesday, not doomsday. Until the Texas freeze, the most expensive item, the most expensive prepping only item I'd ever bought was an MSR MiniWorks water filter, and it was $100. I don't consider guns or ham radio equipment to be a prepping item because I'm a ham radio operator and I use it normally. I don't consider guns necessarily a prepping item because I have guns for other reasons. But for sheer prepping, the most expensive thing that I bought has been my solar kits. But I also went 6 days or 7 days without power during the Texas freeze. So up until that point, I hadn't done anything really crazy. So if you want to get prepared, again, Tuesday, not doomsday, and just pick out the things that are most likely for your area. You don't need to go spend $1,000 a month on canned food and MREs and stuff like that unless you're a doomsday prepper. And if you are, God bless you. That's not my style. But for everyone else out there, fight the fights that you can fight. You know, $100 a month can get you a really long way if you just buy extra food of what you normally buy. Just get a couple extra cans every time you go to the grocery store. You know, you can do a whole lot with $100 a month. I know that times are really tough out there, but you don't have to go into debt to get prepared for, you know, basic fundamental things that are far more likely than, you know, zombies or, you know, global collapse. Government shutdown preps and emergency money saving tips. This is absolutely correct. You know, something that everyone should have before they get too deep into prepping is an emergency financial fund, because you're far more likely to have job loss or a car accident or other financial emergency before the zombies come marching. You know, we just talked about, you know, how things are tight. I get that, but, you know, I've read something that like 85% of the population cannot afford a $500 emergency financial problem. That's amazing, and it's sad and it's scary. And, you know, I'm not a millionaire, but, you know, we're doing okay. Uh, but before you get real hot and heavy into crazy prepping, you know, what's your debt load like? You know, could you survive a $500 car bill? So I absolutely agree with having your financial preps in order and being able to kind of take care of yourself. On this particular topic, many years ago, I was with a company, and sort of the writing was on the wall that they were going to eliminate my position. I just kind of felt it coming, and I had just paid off my car and I was thinking about buying a new one. It's like, you know what, something doesn't feel right. So I reeled in my expenses. I stopped going out to eat, just really kind of snugged up the belt and just, you know, clamped down and was just laying low and was trying to build up my savings. And then I got fired. And like I said, I kind of knew it was coming, but I had a pretty good pillow to land on. So getting fired sucks, but it wasn't nearly as bad as it kind of could have been. My goal is to build a wiki flash drive that fits in my wallet with simple images that any computer can access. People talk about downloading Wikipedia. So this is an interesting idea. I have done the Wikipedia download thing. It's not nearly as easy as people make it out to be using Wix and an old Android tablet or on my phone. It is a neat idea. Data Hoarder on Reddit has data dumps of anything you could possibly think of. Um, Again, I'm not an end of the world prepper, but it's sort of a fun idea. I mean, thumb drives are so cheap now, and I bought a laptop for $100 that runs off at 12 volts. So if you're an end of the world kind of prepper, or if you just want a kind of a fun data project, sure, why not? Download Wikipedia onto a 64 gig thumb drive and go to Data Hoarder and scrape a bunch of survival manuals. Okay. Um, and it's not something I'm personally putting a lot of energy into. It's focusing on bartering the wrong way to go about things. I see people talking about bartering for goods in a post currency world. Okay. I bring this up. Bartering again comes up on Reddit about once a week. About bartering for batteries and things like that in an end of the world economy. Um, if you look at stories from Ukraine or from the economic collapse in Venezuela, a really interesting item popped up was Bic lighters. Bic lighters were apparently the currency in Venezuela, and I find that fascinating. But it makes sense. You need to light a fire to stay warm and to cook food and to create light, and they're cheap, so that's amazing. Uh, I wanted to bring up bartering because people talk about bartering ammunition for food, and I think that's the dumbest thing I've ever heard. If you have a bunch of stuff and you have surplus ammo, and someone comes to you and they don't have ammo and they want to trade you for your ammo, why would you give ammo to someone who didn't have any so that way they can turn around and kill you and take the rest of your stuff? Yeah, that doesn't make any sense to me. I think bartering for skills is much more relevant. I'm an electronics guy, so hey, give me some food and I'll build you a solar system. Okay? You can't take that away. And also, it makes me valuable because if you kill me, now you don't have access to my skills. So I personally think that skills and abilities are far more important than stuff to barter in the end of the world. So, first aid, cooking, medicine, electronics, mechanics. I'm not a mechanical guy, so I'll trade you my electrical skills for your welding skills. Yep, I'd be down with that. But the idea of like stockpiling a million rounds of 223 because sorry, a million rounds of 22 long rifle because that'll be the new currency in the end of the world, I think that that's silly. Is there a way to mask the smell of cooking or other smells that might reveal you have food or supplies in short order? If someone lived in an apartment during a famine, is there a way to hide the smell of cooking rice and beans? That I pulled this one up because it's an interesting question. I spent most of my life living in an apartment, and I thought about like if I had to cook, would I cook in my house or would I go out into the patio and cook? Um, that's a tough one. So bring this up because here's pros and cons. If you stay inside your house to cook, that would be safer, but then you're going to stink up your house. It'll be physically safer, but more dangerous because you've got flames and fumes inside your house, and you're going to stink up your house. If you go outside, it's safer because the fumes and fire, it's outside, but now everyone in your apartment complex knows that you've got food. I'm in a house now, and when one person barbecues outside, the whole neighborhood smells it. So I think if I was in an apartment, I'm a big proponent of the little butane gas grills. I would put it next to the window and open the window. And if I had a little fan, which is what I did during the Texas freeze, I had a fan that blew the fumes outside, but I would stay inside. So I think, to answer the guy's question, I don't think that there's a way that you can mask fumes so much, cooking smells, if you're in an apartment. But I would stay inside near a window and just kind of hope for the best. So interesting food for thought there. Would it be possible to survive a nuclear war if you're living in Europe? Again, a nuclear war question pops up about once a week on Reddit. How do you survive a nuclear war? Don't be on the continent, have a couple of $1 million, and live underground. I mean, nope. Again, nuclear war is not something that I spend a whole lot of time pondering because I don't have the resources to do much about it. So, I fight the fights I can fight, and I don't sweat the things I can't do anything about. You would just go absolutely insane trying to prepare for every possible thing, and I just can't. So, sorry. I just found a new Kindle at a thrift store for $5. I want to load it with PDFs for emergency situations. I found the Army Survival Guide and other basic first aid documents. Can anyone recommend PDFs? So this goes back to the data hoarder thing. I do have an archive of PDFs that one day I will move over to my Fire tablet. I just haven't gotten around to it. If you take first aid classes and you take some training classes, then you don't really need those reference documents quite as much. So, I'm moderately confident in my first aid skills. So, yeah, whatever. But to be fair, tablets are really cheap. And we'll get back into talking about tablets and electronics here in a little while, because I have done electronic preparedness for boredom by loading movies and TV shows onto my Fire tablet, so that way we have something to do when the power goes out this winter. But putting, some books or, some reference material on there, probably not a bad idea. Oh, bug out vehicles, cars or motorcycles. Cars provide shelter, motorcycles can evade traffic jams, and their gas mileage is better. Oh man, this is a weekly thread. What is your best bug out vehicle? I'm going to bring this up because it's a topic that comes up all the time. Where are you bugging out to? What is your plan? These threads make me angry because, it's just Mad Max fantasy. Like, I asked a question once on Reddit. This guy posted, says, what's the best, 4x4 truck to buy as a bug out vehicle? A Dodge Ram, or, a 30-year-old F-150 that's EMP proof. And I replied to him and I said, oh, that's great. So, you have a year's worth of savings and 6 months worth of liquid cash, and you're debt free, and, everything's paid off, and you've just got 40 grand laying around burning a hole in your pocket for you to buy an apocalypse vehicle with. And he did not like that very much. That was pretty snarky, but it's a good point. Like, why are you spending money on a, an end of the world vehicle? But I bring this up because if you're thinking about bugging out, make an actual plan and then work your way backwards. So here we go. So we just got out of wildfire season here in Central Texas, and we had a fire not that far away from us. And so the wife and I actually sat down and talked about it and made a plan. We have relatives kind of in the area, and so we discussed which relative's house would be the best to go to logistically. We plotted out a couple of different routes on how to get there. Talked about the kind of things we would need to take with us. We made a go box with critical paperwork and clothes and cat food and medications. Then we called them and talked to them about it and make sure that they were okay with it. So if you're going to bug out, think your way through it. And there certainly are reasons why you'd want to bug out. And we're going to get to that here in a second. Wildfires, hurricanes, flooding is certainly a practical reason to leave. I'm not a big fan of bugging out, but there are certainly reasons for it. But think your way through it before you go out and buy a F1, a Ram 350 just so that way you can run away from the government or something. Think your way through what your plan is. I feel like there's something I should buy for my first aid kit. What else do I buy? This is also a weekly thing. People want someone to give them a shopping list. So I bring this one up because, your first aid kit should be even with your skill set. It really cracks me up when people are buying sutures and dental equipment and IV bags, but don't have a basic first aid training certification. Like they watch some videos online and think that they're a doctor. So before you go out and you buy a bunch of medical equipment, get some training first. Get some training, and then you'll have a better idea as to what sort of things you should be buying. Solar on a budget. I live in an apartment and I would like to have a basic solar system for a small space. All right, so I want to talk about this one because this popped up on YouTube and this actually makes me very angry. A very popular YouTuber was reviewing a solar generator, and he said, with this 100-watt panel, even if you're living in an apartment, just throw it on your balcony and you'll have all the power that you need. That is a blatant lie. Just a blatant lie. And I really like this guy generally, but that is the biggest exaggeration I have ever heard. Let me clarify that. Solar panels need to be aimed, preferably to the south, but also you can aim towards the east. So if your apartment balcony faces north, you're hosed. Forget about solar. Just forget about it. Go sit on your balcony for a day and watch how the sun rises and goes across it. So it said we're in a house, and I have about a very small patio that's about the size of an apartment patio, and it happens to face completely dead east, which is amazing. But it gets sun because there's houses behind us. The sun doesn't hit the hit the patio until right about 8 o'clock in the morning. But by right about 11:30 noon, it's now over the top of me, and now my balcony is in shade. So that means I get 3 hours of direct sunlight. So if I put a 200-watt panel on my balcony, which I think I could fit, then I would get 600 watt-hours of solar input, which is not bad, but it's not going to run an air conditioner. It would run my electric blanket, which would be great. So, solar in an apartment is really tough. So you really got to lower your expectations. If you just want to charge your phone and some flashlights and maybe a little fan for a couple hours, yeah, maybe. But, if I feel for you. I spent most of my life living in an apartment, and it really sucks. I'm with you there. It bites. But I would rather spend the money on a bigger battery capacity than on solar panels if I lived in an apartment. Given the situation, I would probably buy a 2,000 watt hour battery with no solar versus a 1,000 watt hour battery and 200 watts of solar, because the solar is just not going to do much for me. So again, I bring this up because solar in an apartment is really hard. Solar is hard enough as it is to do right because of trees and stuff. But if you're in an apartment and you're thinking about doing solar, sit on your balcony and watch and see how much sun you're actually getting. If you ain't facing south or east, yeah, it's kind of hard to justify. Cash on hand. I'm 24 and I'm starting prepping. I keep hearing about having cash on hand. And he talks about exchange rates. Whatever. Okay, so yes, I do think that having cash on hand is important. I have cash sitting on the table right next to me, actually. It's nice for a lot of things. Like if you have to make an emergency road trip or you want to buy something on Craigslist or Facebook Marketplace, it's nice to have a couple $100 laying around the house. You don't have to go to the ATM. How much? That is completely up to you. I think 500 is probably a reasonable number, but that's going to depend on anyone's given situation. I also do think that keeping money hidden in your car is important. I've got at least $100 hidden in my vehicle because that'll get me a tank of gas and a meal, or a tank of gas in a really cheap hotel, or pay a tow truck driver. My wife is actually on the road right now on a 3-hour car trip all by herself down some back roads. So if she had a flat tire or something like that, and needed to pay a tow truck driver, hey, there's $100, in cash to get me to where I need to be. So I do believe that cash is important in hand and in your vehicle. Emergency crank radio, charger, flashlight. I keep buying crap. Like that. This is one of those all-in-one flashlight, radio, phone charger things that I got as a birthday present from a friend. God bless her. She knows that I'm a prepper. The reality is they're just not very good. You're going to crank that thing for an hour to get, 5 minutes of playtime or something like that. There's no way you can actually charge a modern phone on that hand crank. So great idea, but it's just not a great execution. You really should just buy stuff independently. I bring this up because I strongly believe that if you own a cell phone, which everybody does, that you need a USB battery pack. See this? You need a USB battery pack. See this? This is an Anker 10,000 milliamp. As you can see, I have bought 3 of them. I buy them and I give them out as presents. They are currently $18 with a 30% off coupon. That means I'm probably going to buy another one because they're so cheap. I need to get me another one. Why? Because they're really handy to have. This one is really thin, so I keep it in my work backpack for when I, can't get to an outlet. They are super handy. If you own a cell phone, buy one of these. So a 10,000 will basically charge your phone 1.5 to 2 times. Okay, they do make bigger ones. They make 20s, which I have a couple of those laying around. But seriously, if you own a cell phone, buy a USB battery charger, please. Stop the Bleed versus North American Rescue. I completed a Stop the Bleed class and I'm looking into kits. I'm comparing kits on the website versus this website, and there's a price difference. I went ahead and I brought this one up not because I want to get into the thread, but because I want to express the importance of training and medical training and Stop the Bleed. Stop the Bleed is essentially first aid training for gunshot wounds. That's really what it's for. And if you've been watching the news, you know that shootings are becoming very common. So it gives you some basic first aid on how to stop traumatic bleeding. Wound packing, tourniquets. Okay, yes, you can watch videos on it, but typically the Stop the Bleed classes are free. Go take one. and then go buy you a North American Rescue tourniquet for 30 bucks and keep it in your car, keep it in your office. I have several of them. So stop the bleed training is very, very important. Get trained and then listen to what your instructor has to say about gear and equipment. I will say the only tourniquet that you need to buy is a North American Rescue tourniquet. These are the real deal. They're about 30 bucks. Skinny Medic on YouTube has some great reviews on the cheap Chinese ones. I bought a package of them basically for training purposes, but you can feel how much they stretch. And even the cheap ones are about $10. So if you're going to try to save someone's life, do it right. Spend the money to buy the right ones. So don't buy cheap tourniquets unless using them for training purposes. Water for car storage. How do you store water in your car? This guy was going to use cans of LaCroix, thinking that they would survive in his car, and then they exploded. So keeping water in your car is hard. I've tried. I clearly live in Texas, where it goes from 0 degrees to 130 degrees, because Texas. So it's hot, and water expands, it pops, That's a tough one. Since I live in the city, I'm less concerned about keeping water in my car. What I do is I keep a really big Nalgene bottle in my car that's empty, like this. A 1.5 is a 48-ounce big sucker. And I keep it empty in my car, thinking that if I had to walk home, that I would pull that out and find a water source. I also have water purification, but instead of keeping raw water, I just have a container to carry it. If you live in a rural area where, or some other place where you really want to have water in your car, the best answer is probably just to rotate it. You buy a case of 20-ounce bottles from Walmart or your grocery store and you throw it in the back, and then you slowly drink out of it. And then when you get to the bottom, you buy another case. And so that way you're kind of constantly rotating. And by having in smaller containers, if they freeze and they explode, number one, the mess is going to be smaller. That's good. And also, hopefully not all of them will explode. Hopefully some of them will explode and some of them will survive, so that way you don't lose everything. I read an interesting idea about using a glass container because of plastic leaching. So I actually went to a brew making store and bought a 3-gallon or 2-gallon, 3-gallon glass old-timey jug, and filled with the thumb ring on it, and filled it up, left some room for expansion, put it in the back of the car. Well, the lids are metal. And so when I pulled that thing out after a year, the lid had rusted. Oops. Yeah. So that's my method, is empty Nalgene with water purification, and I will just collect water. Probably the other better option is just to buy a pallet case of 20 ounces, throw it in the back, and just keep rotating them. It's a tough one, and there's no one size fits all. Readywise emergency food supply. Costco has Readywise brand on sale, 150 meals for $99. Is this a good idea? And the first comment absolutely has it right. Garbage. They are absolute garbage. Yes, garbage. Okay. Why do I say that? Couple of reasons. Number one, what most of those survival companies call a meal or a serving is like 200 calories. Most people eat like 1,500 to 2,000 calories a day. So to call 200 calories a serving or a meal is hysterical. That's like drinking an Ensure, which are 150 to 200 calories, okay? So, number one, they're misleading based on their meal and their calorie count. Number two, they are typically overpriced for what you get for that meal or calorie count. Number three, how do you know you're going to like it? Most of that stuff, unless except for Mountain House. Mountain House tastes really good. Most everything else doesn't taste very good. So, the better option, take that $99 that you're going to spend on a meal bucket and go buy stuff that you actually eat. $100 will buy you a whole lot of Spam, chili, canned vegetables, oatmeal, make a meal plan. You'll get a lot further on $100 than you think that you will. I was on a video last night of this woman who made a 1 week meal kit for her family of four for $75. Pasta, macaroni, canned tomatoes, canned Spam. She bought all this stuff at Walmart for $75. So you can go a lot further than you think you can if you just sit down and think about what you're doing. So there would be very, 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 very rare exceptions where I would buy pre-made food kits like that. Best 5-gallon bucket storage. Looking for suggestions on where to acquire 5-gallon sealable buckets for rice and beans. On the internet, there's companies that specifically sell 5-gallon buckets for food storage. A better answer, Lowe's. Lowe's sells 5-gallon food grade buckets. Better answer, free. Go to your local bakery or your grocery store's bakery because they buy frosting in 5-gallon buckets. I live in Texas, and I went to HEB's bakery on a slow day and just chatted with the guy. I said, hey, do you guys get, icing in buckets? He's like, yeah. It's like, what do you do with them? He's like, throw them away. Hey, could I get some from you? He's like, yeah. What day would be the best that's kind of quiet? Oh, Wednesday. Okay, I'll come see you on Wednesday. Do you want some money for it? He's like, nah, whatever. So talk to your bakery or your local deli, or Firehouse Subs sells them. But yeah, there's lots of places to get buckets. But if you don't have a bakery or a grocery store, Lowe's sells food grade 5-gallon buckets. Real estate. I wonder if it's better to keep a house or sell a house before a perceived imminent crisis war. Is it better to have cash on hand than real estate, or will home prices go up if there's a war? Tuesday, not doomsday. Tuesday, not doomsday. Now I'm going to sarcastically answer this guy, and let's pretend for a second that I actually believe that a war was imminent, and I had a house in LA that's probably worth $1 million because it's LA. So if I actually believed that a war was imminent, I would sell that $1 million house and I would go buy 500 acres out in Tennessee or something like that and build a freaking bunker. But I'm not an end of the world guy, and I don't believe that war is imminent. So this is kind of a weird question, but yeah. What's your thoughts below? Best emergency power options. I live in earthquake country, so I need emergency power for my home that isn't powered by natural gas that will end along with power. Okay, so I'm going to talk about this one because natural gas supply lines are actually relatively robust. During the Texas freeze, when the power grid shut off, we still had gas. So I feel pretty good about a natural gas pipeline still working. However, he said earthquake. So if there's an earthquake, yeah, pipeline's probably going to go down. I'm a fan of solar as opposed to gas generators. So I'll talk about this. Why? No gas, no noise. So I can have my lights on with not worrying about fire or fumes or letting my neighbors know that I have power and they potentially do not. So pros and cons. Obviously solar is a lot more expensive. For the amount of money that I've spent on my solar kit, I could have bought a generator that would run my entire house, but I'm in a rental house, so I'm not going to do that. But then you have to keep it fed with gas, and a lot of gas, and a lot of gas. And I think there's a psychological aspect that, like, if you had a magic generator, you just flip the switch and your power comes back on, you kind of get complacent. Like, you don't really think about, like, what's really important to you if you don't have to kind of think your way through it. Whereas with solar and batteries and what I have planned out, the wife and I had to talk about, like, what's really important. Her switch, the electric blanket, the freezer, like air conditioner, not happening. Running my computer, not happening. Like, you start to weed out things when you start to make those power choices. So I'm a solar fan. Even if I lived in the country where I didn't have neighbors for 100 miles, I would still do solar. So I don't have to listen to the noise, and I don't have to worry about, feeding it gasoline. So I'd probably still have a backup generator to run the air conditioner just because I could, but I think that solar is the better option for most situations. Experience with LED batteries, LED lights powered by tool batteries. I want to add a lantern to my kit using Ryobi cordless drill tools. I wanted to talk about this one because it also comes up a lot. I am a Ryobi fan. I like tools, but man, they have gone crazy making 1,000 different attachments for their batteries. And there are some things that I don't think that they are useful for. So, Ryobi makes an inverter, a 150 watt inverter that snaps onto the top of their battery. And they make a fan that goes on top also. Now, here's my problem. Even the big Ryobi batteries are only 4 amp hours. Okay, 4. That is not much. So 18 volts times 4 amp hours, 20, so that's not quite 80 watt hours. 80 watt hours. So that inverter at 150 watts is going to last you about 30 minutes. You are much better off buying the cheapest solar power station on Amazon than doing a snap-on inverter and a Ryobi battery pack. This is not a knock on Ryobi, but this, unless you literally have 100 of those Ryobi batteries laying around, it just doesn't make any sense. I mean, this thing is $50 for plus the battery for 80 watt hours. Just doesn't make any sense. Buy something different. God bless them, Ryobi. I love you, but it just doesn't make any practical sense. EMP proof bike engine. I want to make a bicycle engine that's EMP proof. The components I bought will not survive. I love this. The number one comment is your feet. I love that. EMPs are the absolute biggest scam of all time. Stop wasting your time, spending your money trying to EMP proof your stuff. All right? If an EMP goes off, it's because there was a nuclear explosion, and you're going to have much bigger things to worry about than whether or not your electric bicycle or your Baofeng works. Stop worrying about EMPs. Emergency broadcast coincidence. Am I being paranoid? The U.S. is planning to test the National Emergency Broadcast System, and now Russia is planning a nuclear strike simulation. Are things about to get spicy? Yes, things are getting spicy. Yes, it's a coincidence. No, it's not a conspiracy. Putin is being Putin. Like, take off the tinfoil hat and be happy that we're actually testing our emergency equipment. Why do so many people want a generator? The noise will only bring people to your door. This is absolutely correct, and I just talked about this. I think that solar makes more sense because I don't have to worry about noise, so I agree. The world is coming to the end. As Russia closes in, what type of generator do I buy? And what's the most essential? The world is coming to the end, and you want a generator. Yeah, okay. So this collapses all the other things we were talking about. I would not buy a generator. I would use solar, and the world is not coming to an end. Russia is not closing in. And I left 2 identical threads for the last because they're my favorite. What is the best radio for modern times? And what do I use for emergency communications? This is a daily thread, a daily question on Reddit about what comms to buy. And the answer is always Baofeng. And it's the wrong answer. And I'm not a Baofeng hater. I have a Baofeng. I have 3 of them. I also have Yaesus. I have 3 of them. Okay? So it's not about the radio. It's just about physics. Okay? People ask, what radio do I buy to talk to my mom in Georgia or to my friend on the other side of town that's 30 miles away? This is not going to do it. Doesn't matter if it's a $20 Baofeng or a $400 Yaesu. This is not going to do it. The answer is satellite radio, satellite phone, spot messenger. They're $150, something like that. This is not it. And I am a ham radio operator. I've been a ham for 13, 14 years. I have tested this in the city. I've had towers. I've had high-powered equipment. I've got on the roof of buildings. Yeah, guess what? Still didn't work. So, if you want a better answer, GMRS is the right answer, but not a Baofeng. Go get you a Midland GMRS radio. They're not that much more expensive than the Baofeng, but get you a Midland GMRS radio and charge it up, and that's going to be about as good as it's going to get. Then go and test it. But I promise you, you're not going to get 100 miles or 50 miles or whatever they list on the package. It's not going to happen. It's just not. My all-time record for a handheld was 35 miles. I actually have done that. And I was literally on top of a mountain with an antenna in a tree talking to a guy in the next city over who was on a handheld in a parking lot with a directional antenna aimed straight at me. So yes, it's possible, but that's the best case scenario. If you're in a normal city, you're gonna get like a mile, maybe. So this is sad because this is really happening right now. Water in the streets. So there is flooding in New York. And it's pretty rough, and I feel for you guys out there because this is just not something that happens real often. But man, situational awareness, knowing that it's coming and prepping for it. Hurricanes or earthquakes are really bad because you have no notice, but hurricanes, snowstorms, and rainstorms, you got some advanced notice on. So I'm sorry for you guys out there, but for the rest of the world, be aware of your surroundings. Watch the news, watch the weather, and stop and think about, what's going on and how much advanced notice that you got. During the freeze, the Texas freeze, I was really beating myself up for weeks afterwards because we saw it coming, and I just kind of shrugged my shoulders like, it won't be that bad. Oh, it'll be fine. And then the day before it hit, I of course went to Home Depot to get covers for my faucet, and they're all sold out. So I really felt guilty for ignoring the signs for weeks on end and not doing anything about it, and I felt really, really bad. So situational awareness will get you really far. So pay attention to the news, pay attention to the weather, and get in front of the crowds. So if you're still here with me, I appreciate it. Give me a thumbs up and drop a comment down below and let me know what you think about my rants. So appreciate it. See you guys later. Bye.